Here's what came out of today's hearing. Number one, the government acknowledged that they offered Combs a plea deal. Combs acknowledged he has no interest in taking that. They're going to move forward with the trial. They also talked about the jury selection process, which one legal expert I spoke to said is probably the most important thing that you want to pay close attention to before the actual trial starts. And thirdly, we learned that Combs will be adding 2 new attorneys to his defense team.
Today in a New York federal courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs told the judge he was, quote, a little nervous. The rap mogul's criminal trial began this morning. He is sex trafficking, racketeering, and more. The two sides are now in the process of selecting a jury of 12.
Sean Diddy Combs is no longer making headlines for music or business deals. He's at the center of one of the most intense federal criminal trials in recent memory. Inside a packed courtroom, prosecutors are laying out a case that reads more like a thriller than a legal proceeding. Racketeering, coercion, and conspiracy. The air is tense, the media is swarming, and the accusations are nothing short of explosive. From the moment the charges were unsealed, the courtroom became ground zero for a public unraveling. Prosecutors claim Diddy ran a secretive and abusive network for years, hiding behind fame, fortune, and influence. And to prove it, they didn't start small. Early in the trial, they played a piece of evidence that left the room stunned. Surveillance footage from a 2016 hotel hallway.
Chasing Cassie Ventura down a Los Angeles hotel hallway back in 2016. Ventura, which you'll see, is grabbed by her neck and thrown to the floor, and then kicked twice and then dragged. Now, we're not going to show the entire video because it is disturbing.
What happened on that tape and how it shook the courtroom set the tone for everything that followed. The courtroom went silent when the footage played. A grainy, black and white surveillance clip from 2016 showing a scene that felt almost too brutal to believe. In it, Diddy is seen in a hotel hallway with then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura. What started as an argument escalated fast. He throws a vase, kicks her, and drags her down the hall like she's nothing. No sound, just raw violence. The jury watched in stunned silence. Some couldn't even look. Others shook their heads. Prosecutors didn't say much. They didn't need to. The video said everything. This footage didn't just support the claims, it set the tone. It gave weight to what prosecutors were calling a pattern of abuse. Not just behind closed doors, but in public spaces, where cameras could still catch a glimpse of the chaos. It was a strategic move. Drop the most visceral piece of evidence early and let the rest of the case unfold under that shadow. From that moment on, the narrative wasn't about celebrity, it was about control, fear, and what the government claimed was years of manipulation behind the scenes. And it worked. That single video flipped the energy in the room. No more jokes, no whispers about cancel culture. Just a growing sense that this trial might reveal something way darker than people were ready to face. But it wasn't just what was on the tape. It was what came after that really changed everything. As the footage settled into everyone's minds, the trial moved to one of the most unpredictable and high-stakes phases. Jury selection. And right from the start, it was a mess. Over 160 potential jurors were brought in, and almost immediately, nearly 50 were dismissed. Not because they weren't qualified, but because they couldn't stomach what they were hearing. Some had seen the headlines, some had watched the video, and others just didn't want to be anywhere near a case this disturbing. The questions got personal. How much media do you consume? What do you think about celebrities? Do you believe power can hide the truth? It was clear that both sides were fishing for control, trying to shape a jury that could either condemn or defend one of the most powerful figures in music. But the problem was, no one in that room was truly neutral. How could they be? That's when things got even stranger. In a move that caught nearly everyone off guard, the judge brought in a familiar name, Ben Chew.
Built a reputation as one of the most talented actors in Hollywood. A respected artist whose name was associated with success at the box office. Today, his name is associated with a lie.
Yep, Johnny Depp's lawyer. The same guy who helped turn the Amber Heard defamation trial into a media circus. He wasn't there to argue. He was there to guide, to help select a jury that wouldn't react emotionally to shocking content, to teach the court how to navigate celebrity trials without losing focus.
We'll also have a member of the team going through the social media of these jurors, making sure they didn't do anything. I mean, how much research can you do in terms of, did they search for something? Did they say something? I always am curious about that because you come into court the next day and you always hear a prosecutor or defense attorney say, court, we have an issue we would like to bring to your attention. Juror number 5 was looking, it's like, how did they find that out? Is that what happens?
Well, it is in a high stakes case like this. I mean, as you know, not all clients have the resources to hire, jury consultants and to hire investigators. But in this case, you have a defendant who could theoretically be sentenced to life in prison, who has the means. So I'm sure, or I would think, that his counsel have a team of investigators following the jurors around to the extent they can and looking for any electronic footprint.
And reportedly, Diddy hated it. Behind the scenes, sources say he went off, furious, paranoid, convinced that Chu's presence meant the process was rigged. He didn't trust the optics, didn't like the comparisons to Depp, and definitely didn't want the public thinking this trial was more about performance than justice. But by then, he was already losing control of the narrative. Because while he raged in private, the courtroom kept moving, and the pressure was building fast.
This morning, day 2 of jury selection in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of Sean Combs, seen in court with graying hair. Federal prosecutors are trying to prove Combs used his power, wealth, and fame to force women into drug-fueled orgies he called freak-offs and then threaten them into silence.
The jury questionnaire warning potential jurors there may be evidence of sexually explicit videos, photographs, and language. Many prospective jurors said they had heard of the case and this potentially damning evidence. Video first obtained by CNN showing Combs knocking then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura to the floor of a Los Angeles hotel in 2016 and kicking and dragging her. It was upsetting to watch, one woman told the judge, but I don't know the full story, so I can listen to the facts.
Many prospective jurors said they recognized the names of other celebrities that might come up at trial.
Several potential jurors knew of Combs' cultural significance. The woman said she remembered him from Making the Band. A man said he liked to listen to hip-hop in the 1990s.
Can nobody hold me down?
When Combs became a chart-topping artist. To remain in the jury pool, all had to say they could be fair. The judge tried to keep things moving, so when the defense asked for a bathroom break, Combs apologized, saying, "Sorry, Your Honor, I'm a little nervous today."
While the prosecution painted a picture of manipulation and abuse, Diddy's legal team came out swinging with a completely different story. Led by Mark Agnifilo, a defense lawyer known for taking on controversial clients like NXEVM cult leader Keith Raniere, they didn't deny that wild things happened. Instead, they claimed it was all consensual. The parties, the power games. According to them, it was just part of an alternative lifestyle that everyone involved signed up for. No victims, no crimes. Just a celebrity whose personal choices are being twisted into something sinister. They called Diddy flawed, sure. Human, egotistical, but not a predator, not a trafficker, not the villain the media had made him out to be. And as bizarre as that defense sounded, it struck a chord with some people, especially those who believe fame attracts opportunists and exaggerates the truth.
You put Johnny Depp on the stand, it's always a high-risk strategy. It worked for you. If you were representing Sean Diddy Combs, would you put him up?
Well, we put Johnny up because he was telling the truth. So that was a very easy decision to make, and he had the burden of proof. And frankly, we couldn't have stopped him even if we wanted to, but we didn't want to. Telling the truth as he did over several days, you're not telling the truth. Skilled attorneys on the other side are going to puncture that. I believe in that system. I think in this case, I don't think he's got any choice. Given that video, he's got to explain it. He's got to say that he's terribly sorry for it, but that was an aberration. That's not who he is. He simply has to say.
Then came the moment that surprised even the people inside the courtroom. The government offered Diddy a plea deal, a chance to settle, possibly avoid a life sentence, and walk away without a full public trial. He said no. According to his team, Diddy wanted his day in court. He wanted to clear his name. But others saw something else. Maybe it was ego. Maybe it was arrogance. Or maybe he truly believed that his version of the story could hold up under scrutiny. Whatever it was a gamble. Because now he wasn't just facing scandal, he was staring down decades in prison, with the full weight of the federal government coming after him. And just when the defense started building their narrative, someone from Diddy's inner circle came forward and shattered the illusion. Enter Chopper, a name hip-hop heads might remember from his time on Making the Band, but now he's making headlines for a different reason. This wasn't a lawyer or a journalist spinning a theory. This was someone who had been there. In the rooms, at the parties, behind the velvet rope where no cameras were supposed to go.
So I don't know, bro. I'm talking about celebrities. I'm talking about big time celebrities. You dig? I was just young city. I was just Chopper. You heard me? But to see like the juggernauts, the big dogs, you dig? The people we grew up watching, it was kind of exciting too. It was weird, exciting, and because you can't believe that you're here. They are accepting you. But I don't really think they was accepting it. They just was fucking having fun. They ain't give a fuck who was there. And it was kind of like a situation towards, what you see in here don't go outside. It was kind of like that, if that makes sense. Whatever happens in here stays in here, because everybody got something to lose in here. So it was kind of like that too. So I guess that made people be okay and willingly able to do whatever they wanted to do in there. You heard me? Because they knew that at the end of the day, it wasn't going to come back out up there. That's why people were so eager and fun to do what they wanted to do in there. Just my opinion. Because everybody has something to lose.
And when Chopper spoke, the courtroom and the internet paid attention. In a raw, detailed interview, he described what he said he saw firsthand at Diddy's events: underground parties, surveillance equipment hidden in bedrooms, and an atmosphere soaked in paranoia and fear. According to Chopper, these weren't just wild parties. They were organized, controlled, and weaponized. He painted a picture of a place where people weren't just indulging, they were being watched, manipulated, and in some cases, trapped.
The producers over there at MTV at the time, who was super cool guy. He actually had the camera walking with us, you heard me, to Brooklyn to get the cheesecake. The first Art Dialogue interview, you heard me, that I did, he DM'd me, and I definitely talked to him. He was like, "Yeah, bruh, how you been, Chop?" I'm like, I'm straight, bruh. Appreciate you hitting me. Long time. He like, "Yeah, bruh, I appreciate your interview, you heard me, that you did on Art of Dialogue." I said, "Thank you, I appreciate you, bruh." And he was like, "You ever notice why I was shooting with y'all and then all of a sudden you haven't seen me after that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because one time Diddy invited me to his office and told me to suck his dick." And he was like, he said, "I damn near wanted to kill him, bro." He was like, I left the office and I quit.
One of the most disturbing claims, an alleged incident involving an MTV cameraman. Chopper said Diddy made repeated, unwanted advances toward the man during a shoot. The cameraman reportedly quit the job not long after, shaken by what happened. That moment added another layer to the accusations, not just about what happened behind closed doors, but about how those in professional environments were allegedly pressured and silenced. Chopper described Diddy's inner circle as a pressure cooker, a place where everyone had something to lose. And that was the point. Keep people complicit, keep them quiet. Whether or not you believe every detail, the story had weight because it didn't come from a distant tabloid. It came from someone who had nothing to gain by speaking out, and everything to lose. But even that wasn't the darkest part of the prosecution's case, because the next set of allegations went beyond abuse and into territory that stunned even veteran investigators. According to prosecutors, what happened at Diddy's parties wasn't just reckless or morally questionable. It was criminal, calculated, and terrifying. They introduced allegations that took everything a step further. Events dubbed freak-offs, secret gatherings that allegedly involved both men and women, often intoxicated, sometimes drugged, and nearly always recorded without consent.
Involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted.
The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to sexually exploit both women and men for decades. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges that accused him of coercing alleged victims into prolonged drug-fueled sexual activity that he called freak-offs and threatening them into...
The government claimed Diddy administered GHB, a drug commonly associated with control and submission. They say these sessions were filmed not for pleasure, but for leverage. The footage, prosecutors argued, wasn't a trophy. It was a weapon. A way to ensure silence. A way to make sure no one would talk, even if they wanted to. But it didn't stop there. The allegations spiraled into something that sounded like a movie script turned nightmare. Physical threats, guns flashed at guests who stepped out of line, even whispers of arson, properties mysteriously going up in flames after confrontations or fallouts. Whether to send a message or erase evidence, no one could say for sure. But the implication was clear. Power wasn't just about money. It was about fear. One woman, referred to in court documents only as Victim 1, was reportedly central to the entire case. While the prosecution kept her identity anonymous, all signs pointed to Cassie Ventura. Her civil lawsuit, filed in 2023, was the first domino to fall, and according to investigators, it laid the foundation for everything that followed. Her claims of coercion, violence, and being forced into degrading acts weren't just disturbing. They were consistent with what others eventually began to say. The deeper the prosecutors dug, the uglier it got. And yet, even as these stories emerged, something strange began to happen inside the courtroom. Diddy, once surrounded by friends, family, and handlers, was suddenly alone. In the early days of the trial, Diddy walked into court flanked by a full entourage, family, attorneys, close associates. It was a classic power move, a show of strength. The message was clear. He wasn't rattled, he wasn't alone. But as the weeks went on and the accusations piled up, that wall of support started to crack. By the time the most recent hearing rolled around, something was noticeably off. His family, once a consistent presence, was nowhere to be seen. No comforting glances from the courtroom benches, no public statements of support, just silence. And for a man who'd spent decades cultivating the image of a loyal inner circle, that silence spoke volumes. Whispers started flying. Had the family been advised to distance themselves? Were they struggling to process what they were hearing in court? Or did they already know more than they were willing to admit? No one gave answers, and maybe that was the point. The optics told a different story now. Not of a wrongly accused celebrity fighting for his life, but of a man slowly watching his empire collapse from the inside out. Even the public seemed divided. For every fan defending his legacy, there were just as many calling this his long overdue reckoning. The tone online wasn't sympathy, it was suspicion. People weren't asking if he was guilty, they were asking how deep it goes. And as Diddy sat in pre-trial detention, no longer in control of the narrative, the one question that remained was the one no one could seem to agree on. So now we're here. The headlines haven't slowed. The trial is far from over. And Sean Diddy Combs, once seen as untouchable, is sitting in a jail cell watching everything he built unravel in public view. The man who defined hip-hop opulence, who partied with presidents and made fortunes off his name, is now facing the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. For some, this is justice finally catching up. A long overdue spotlight on power abuse in the entertainment world. For others, it feels like a public takedown. Trial by media, driven by accusations that are hard to verify and even harder to forget. Either way, this case isn't just about Diddy. It's about fame, control, silence, and what happens when someone at the top finally runs out of places to hide. And as the trial continues, the world is watching, not just for a verdict, but for a message about how far influence can really go before it breaks, about what happens when the cameras keep rolling after the lights go out. Was this the fall of a predator, or is it the biggest celebrity setup of our time? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story, it's far from over.